Hello and welcome to CarWale's Drive a Car series, and this time we've made a slight change in the recipe. So instead of sticking with hatchbacks and sedans, we've gone in for an SUV body style. But as it turns out, this SUV drives just like a car. This is the Volkswagen Taigun, and it is based on the Indianized version of VW's global MQB platform meant for small to average size cars. And the Taigun benefits from this approach. Its top hat might be that of an SUV, but underneath it is a car through and through. The suspension, steering, as well as the wheelbase and track lengths are similar to the Virtus sedan. And in terms of weight, there's barely 10 kg between the two. Not surprisingly, the Taigun drives more like a sedan than an SUV. Then there's the engine. The 4-cylinder 1.5-litre turbo petrol packs in almost 150 bhp, and the torque is a handsome 250 Nm too. The torque peaks in super early as well at barely 1600 rpm. In our car, we have stuck with the manual, and it is a 6-speed unit. Braking duties, meanwhile, are handled by discs up front and drum brakes at the rear, and the Taigun, like its sedan sibling, rides on 16-inch wheels wrapped in 205 section tires. The Taigun's 1.5 is a strong engine, and the output figures speak for themselves. 150 horsepower, about 250 Newton meters of torque, available from little under 2000 rpm. And that gives this engine a lot of flexibility, especially when you want to push around the hard sections and you don't really want to tire yourself out because you want to shift through the gears all the time so that you have just the right amount of power to get you out of corners. There's no problem on that front. Of course, there's a lot of purchase between 2 and 6000 rpm, the whole rev range really. But it's between 3 and 5 that we enjoyed this engine the most. Now, it is a relatively free revving engine. It is reasonably nice sounding. I wouldn't say it's like a fantastic sounding engine, but it is an engine that you can, revel in, have fun with, and it doesn't seem, laborious or tiresome. So, especially when you want to get out of, or when you're exiting these tight hairpin bends and you can't decide whether I should do it in second or third, this one gives you the flexibility to do it in either. So now we've chosen second because, well, it is a little tight at the exit, and then you get a really nice strong drive out of corners. The other thing that works really well between this RPM, between 3 and 5, is the throttle response. So around roads like these, you want, the throttle, you should be able to play with the throttle response well, because you want to keep at it, but you don't want to smash it. And with the turbo engine, you don't want that step in. So this allows you to do that. You can balance the car on the throttle as much as you want without causing it to understeer too much. So, yeah. Another thing that we are not fans of when it comes to this engine is the lack of refinement to a degree. I wouldn't say it's like an unrefined engine, but it's not that smooth and easy revving as you'd want a nice petrol engine to be, so that you can enjoy it. And there's also a hint of vibration that comes in, let's say, close to 4000 rpm. So like, it doesn't feel like it's not enjoying being revved, but because you can feel vibrations at so many touch points that you feel that maybe if it were smoother it'd be nicer. But yeah. But engine, otherwise, I think in terms of performance, in terms of drive, it's a very strong engine. Yes, it is. Okay. Now Now this engine is coupled to a 6-speed manual, and I think this manual is probably the one thing that I did not enjoy about this car. I know, as odd as it sounds, it's a, you know, driver's car series, manuals are the way to go, but this is not as great a manual as you'd like in a driver's car. So it's not like it's got, you know, very long throws, or it's extremely vague and it requires a lot of effort. None of that. But it's not as precise, it's not as clickety-click as you'd like a nice manual to be. Also, the placement could have been better. It doesn't fall as naturally to hand. And I said it's not a lot of work, but it is still some amount of work, especially when you want to shift through the gears really quickly. Chances are that sometimes it just doesn't even fall into place. Of course, some amount is driver error, but it doesn't help the cause. So yeah, the manual gearbox would be a reasonably big chink in the Taigun's armor. Otherwise, so far it's proved to be a really good car to drive. And I'm also not a fan of the pedal box. The pedals are placed reasonably close, so there's no issue there. But the brake pedal travel is a little too deep, and so if you want to heel and toe, there's a lot of effort that goes in. You have to move your feet far in to be able to do that, and that, again, when you're shifting quickly, it gets in the way. Steering on the Taigun is not the quickest steering that we've encountered. It's also not slow, mind you. It's 3 turns lock to lock, so relatively neutral in that sense, striking the right balance. And as a result, when the first movement of the steering doesn't get the Taigun to immediately turn in as fast as, you know, you'd really like, but then once it's set in, then the steering is linear. So there's a higher level of predictability. You can, you know how much to turn in, you know how much to dial in for each speed, so that you're not, you know, the car's not understeering and you're not running wide. You're also not curbing the corner, and it gives you that range. And so again, it doesn't also completely isolate you from the road. So you catch a camber, of course the steering will respond. You get on the throttle a little too hard, there's some torque steer, it will respond. So it feels alive in that sense, and you want that. So you know what the car is doing, what the front end is doing, and that steering, it tells you, it communicates that to you. So even though it's not the quickest steering, I like the steering on the Taigun. It is something that gets you involved, and that's always a welcome thing. The highlight of the Taigun for me has to be its handling. I know how it sounds. It is an SUV body style, and we're saying that handling is its strongest suit, but it is. It is the balance, it is the feel from the chassis. It doesn't feel as stiff or disconnected. It tells you exactly what it's doing. It doesn't mind quick direction changes. All of that just blends in beautifully, and it feels light, it feels playful, which is what we really like about the Taigun's handling. And of course, it's helped by, you know, the engine being on song most of the time, so you can push it harder, faster, and it never feels like things will go awry. It's just, I mean, you can place it exactly where you want. You can run really close to the edge, knowing exactly where it's going to land up and what it's going to do. So in terms of connect, in terms of handling involvement, in terms of good driving feel, this is tremendous amount of fun. And even when you want to put your power down around hairpin bends, of course, there's a lot of torque, a lot of power going to the front wheels. But the way it's set up, you don't really find yourself being washed wide. You can still put it down and it will still, you can play with the line that you want. You can keep it neutral, you can, be a little more aggressive with the throttle and watch it understeer, not dramatically, just a little bit, or towards, when you're getting out of the corner, you can just keep it balanced all through the corner, and towards the exit, you can just flick the steering a little, get the tail to step out just a bit so that you're in line where you want to go, and then bam, you can just go for it. So, it is an SUV at the end of the day. Sure, underneath it is a car, that's what we've said at the start. But still, it is a high riding car. But the way it manages all of that is just so much fun. Another aspect where I would have liked the Taigun to do better is braking. It's not a problem in terms of bite or the amount of power that the brake packs in, it is the modulation. So on the Taigun you get on the brakes and you've got nothing, and whoop, suddenly the brakes come in. We've experienced that even in the city when we're driving peacefully. But when you're driving hard, when you're pushing it, when you want to enjoy it around corners, it matters even more because you want to carry some amount of trail braking, let's say, into the corner. You want to be able to heel and toe a little more, with higher predictability. And all of that becomes very difficult because of the way, the brake progression is on the Taigun. When we went into this driver series with the Taigun, my biggest worry was, are we doing the right thing by changing the recipe, moving away from hatchbacks and sedans and going into SUV body styles? And I am so pleased to note that we did the right thing, because when it comes to handling, when it comes to steering, when it comes to the engine on the Taigun, the 1.5, it is a joyous car. The handling in particular is, I don't know if sublime is the right word, but it is playful. And you want that in a car when in a driving car, in driver's car. And it is there. So yes, if you like SUVs, if you want SUVs and you want a car that's good to drive, get the Taigun. You won't regret it, yeah. The only suggestion I would have is, if you're getting the Taigun 1.5, is get the dual clutch automatic. I know I am a fan of manuals, but this manual hasn't been as good fun to use, honestly. And I've used the DSG on the Taigun, of course on the road, and it's a good automatic gearbox, something that will respond to your needs. And because you can't do heel and towing as well, because the shift quality is not so great, because you don't enjoy the manual shift, then why not just get something that is, more in line with what you want to do, so you can enjoy the handling, the steering and all of that, and leave the shifting to what is a quick enough gearbox. And I know we're deviating further from the recipe of driver's car, first the SUV and now we're saying automatic, but for the Taigun I think that is what you should get.